Hello everyone, hello everyone. Welcome once again. And we welcome you to this season 5 gold and silver cup draw. Alright, so we're very glad that you could join us as we officially get rolling for another exciting season. Today we will be setting up the group stages for both the Gold Cup and Silver Cup competitions, and on top of that we've got a big tournament reveal for the end of the FC25 cycle in Nacl. So trust me, you won't want to miss it. Alright, let's dive in. Season 5 officially kicks off in 2 days time on Saturday, August 2nd, 2025. And that's just around the corner, so get ready. Each week in Season 5, for the top 2 divisions, we'll typically see 2 league matchups and 1 club matchup, and that will be the standard schedule for most weeks. In week 2, we'll switch it up. We'll have 2 cup matchups and 1 league game instead, just a quick shuffle in priority to keep the competitions moving smoothly. Each competition also follows a slightly different structure to last season. The Gold Cup remains the same way, with 16 teams, 4 groups of 4, and the top 2 from each group will move on to the knockout rounds at the end of the group stage. The Silver Cup instead has 8 teams, with 2 groups of 4, and instead the third place teams in the Gold Cup group stage will be dropping down for a second shot at the Silver Cup. Now, for tiebreakers, if teams are tied on points in the group stage, here's the order we follow to break the tie. First, we look at the head-to-head results, then we look at goal difference. Simple and clear. Now, just before we jump into the draw, let's take a moment to appreciate what has happened so far. We're 4 seasons deep into FC25, and in that time, we've seen some incredible moments and some standout teams across the Gold and Silver Cup. In Season 1, La Masia were crowned Gold Cup champions, Express FC won the Silver Cup that time, and that set the tone for what this competition could be. In Season 2, we saw Rescued FC take the Gold Cup crown in what was an incredible fairy tale run. La Masia didn't leave empty-handed either. They took home the Silver Cup that season, showing their consistency and depth. In Season 3, another new Gold Cup champion, Arctic Aces, rose to the top, took the Gold Cup in a very thrilling final, and Catalonia FC, that dominant side, claimed silver. And they were extremely dominant in their respective areas. And finally, just last season, La Masia once again showed their pedigree by reclaiming the Gold Cup, and in the Silver Cup, MB Rovers made a real statement. Their run to the title was one of the most consistent and focused we've seen, proving they're ready to be a force going forward. And so whether these clubs are still around or not, their names are etched into the history of the league, and we respect what they brought to the NACL and to the FC25 cycle. Before we get to the draw though, we've got something very special to share. Once every FC cycle, that is once per game, before the next FC release, we have said it that we will host a unique event. And it's not just another competition, it's a way for us to celebrate the journey that we've all taken together, the community we've built, and our shared love for the game. And we are proud to announce the NACL World Cup. The NACL World Cup will be the final event of the FC25 era, and it will last for 2 weeks, and it will culminate with a big final on Thursday, September 25th, 2025. That is just one day before FC26 officially drops, so it is a proper send-off. Season 5 will also act as the qualifying phase for the World Cup. The better you do this season, the more secure your place will be, and your placement can even decide who gets to host games and who unfortunately will be the away team. As you see on your screen, there will not be a group stage for this World Cup as it lasts 2 weeks. It will be straight knockouts, one game, every round, one game battle, no best of 3 as we normally do, and if you win, you advance. If you lose, you're out. Pure intensity from day one. The top 22 teams from Season 5 automatically qualify for the round of 32. And that is determined through the draft, which if you go to the World Cup channel in the NACL server, it is posted there for you to check out. The next 20 teams, based on Season 5 ranking, will compete in a 3-day play-in tournament, and they'll battle it out for the next and the final 10 spots. If any team decides to opt out or can't participate, the next highest ranked team will take their spot. So if you're close to the cutoff, don't lose hope. And now let's talk about national teams. This is what makes the World Cup special. Each team will represent a country, and these countries will be picked through a draft. And this draft order will also be chosen from Season 5 performance. So the better you do this season, the earlier you get to pick your nation. And as we all know, some countries bring extra heat to the World Cup. We'll be doing this draft live, as you see on your screen once again, and all info about it, schedules, how to watch, what to expect, will be available in the World Cup channel on Discord. One final reminder, promotion and relegation are still in play this season. Those movements will affect which teams get priority invites for the first NACL season of FC25, that is Season 6, which will begin around late October to early November. Alright, let's get back to the part we've been waiting for. For the Gold Cup, or rather, here's how the draw will work. For the Gold Cup, there are 4 pots of seeded teams, pots 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each pot has 4 teams. We'll draw one pot at a time, starting with pot 1, and each team drawn from the pot is placed into the next available group in order. So, for example, if a team is the first team that is drawn, rather, will go to Group A, the second team that is drawn will go to Group B, and so on through Group C and D, and then we'll go to the next pot. And this continues until all 16 teams, and for the Silver Cup, the 8 that we mentioned, are drawn and assigned to their respective groups. And the draws will be done using the Wheel of Names. Before we continue, very quickly, we'd just like to thank our partners, Score7, who have helped us so much so far, and helped us start this tournament and help us track our scores, help us track everything that we need to do, and provide the tables which you see on our server. And so we want to thank them very much for doing this for us for free. Alright, here are the teams for the Gold Cup. First off, the Great La Masia, the current defending champions of the Gold Cup, 2-time Gold Cup winners now, and a constant dominant force. Prime OGs had an incredible season last time out. In what was a one-horse race in Division 1, find themselves in second place in the table, a very big improvement, and now have a chance to have a much better chance at a Gold Cup run, earning a Pot 1 spot. Roger Blancos started the season poorly, finished strongly, find themselves in third and the third team in Pot 1. MB Rovers, Silver Cup winners, Division 3 champions, had an incredible run out last season. Once again are the final team here in Pot 1 and have earned it, safe to say, and will be looking at a bigger prize this time out, the Gold Cup. SODMG, Eternal XI, Rejects United, and Boundless. The first three teams finished in the mid-table of Division 1, while Boundless found themselves Division 2 champions and so have earned themselves Pot 2 status. In Pot 3 we've got Lavea, 54 the gang, Catalonia, who had a very underwhelming season, Kuromi FC, and finally in Pot 4, Lost Nomads, St. Jube FC, Fusion XI, formerly Cosa Nostra, who found themselves in the Silver Cup finals, and actually gave a very good account of themselves compared to Eternal XI in the Gold Cup, and Habana FC, non-league champions. Alright, let's get to the draw. We're going to start up right now. As you can see on your screen, we have the wheel of names and we have a nice little tier list on the other side where we're going to have a visual input of the teams in their groups. I should change that to D instead of F. Alright, let's get to it. We're going to very quickly draw from one of the teams in Pot 1, and we're going to draw them. Here we go. The first team are the team that will be earning the first spot in Group A. Of course, our current defending champions, La Mastia, are in Group A. They have earned that spot, and safe to say, I think that's the major team that deserves that. Let's just have a quick visual input here for you. So La Mastia in Group A. Okay, we take them out. Oh, voice crack. Okay, we're going to take them out right there and make it easier for everyone to. Alright, so here we go. We're going to pick one of these next few teams and put that team in Group B. Alright, MB Rovers heading to Group B. Alright, and here we go. We now have Roger Blancos and Prime OGs. One of these teams will be going to Group C, and the team that is not chosen will be going to Group D. Roger Blancos will be going to Group C, and Prime OGs will be going to Group D. Alright, so as we can see on our screens, we've got La Mastia in Group A, MB Rovers in Group B, Roger Blancos in Group C, Prime OGs in Group D. Okay, we're going to move on to the Pot 2 teams now. We're going to add them very quickly to the round draw and to our tier list. Okay, now to the Pot 2 teams where we have Sodom G, Eternal XI, Rejects, and Boundless, and let's see who will join the Pot 1 teams in their respective groups. Boundless FC will join. Oh, we have an interesting matchup. The Super Cup finalists will find themselves in the same group, in Group A. Interesting. I think what would make this special is if we all know what will make it special is if a certain third team finds themselves in Group A as well. Anyway, let's go right back to where we are at and continue with the draw. Rejects United will be in Group B alongside MB Rovers. There we go. Then we've got SudMG and Eternal XI looking for a spot in Group C and Group D. Alright, so SODMG are in Group C alongside Roger Blancos, and Eternal XI will be meeting Prime OGs in a replay of the last quarterfinal for a spot in Group D. So far, some very interesting matchups in both groups, but let's see where we go with the teams from the third pot. As we can see, as you can see on your screen now, we've got Lavia, 54 the Gang, Catalonia, and Kuromi that will be taking a spot, or rather are the pot 3 teams. And now they'll be looking to take one of the spots in A, B, C, or D. Here we go. Let's hope we get that interesting matchup in Group A. Lavia will be joining. That's a bit painful. Lavia will be joining La Mustia and Boundless in Group A. Oh, I gotta add these. Alright, here we go. So Lavia will be joining La Mustia and Boundless in Group A. Kuromi FC will be joining MB Rovers and Rejects United in Group B. Let's just do the quick visual input for you guys. Alright, then Catalonia and 54 the Gang for a spot in Group C or D. Right, so Catalonia have confirmed their spot in Group C alongside Roger Blancos and SODMG, and 54 the Gang will be alongside Prime OGs and Eternal XI in Group D. Okay, so before we go to the final part, let's do a quick recap. We've got La Mustia, Boundless and Via in Group A, MB Rovers, Rejects United and Kuromi FC in Group B, Roger Blancos, SODMG and Catalonia ESP in Group C, Prime OGs, Eternal XI and 54 the Gang in Group D so far. And then to the final teams in Pot 4. Alright, so the final few teams in Pot 4 got Los Nomads, St. Jude, Fusion XI, Habana FC. Let's just quickly add this. Let's go. Lost Nomads in Group A. Fusion XI in Group B. That's just confirmation there for you. Havana FC in Group C and St. Jude in Group D. Alright, so there we go. These are Gold Cup teams and our Gold Cup draw teams. Alright, this is the Gold Cup group stage. La Mastilla in Group A, Boundless, La Villa and Lost Nomads join them. MB Rovers, Rejects United, Kuromi FC and Fusion XI round off Group B. Roger Blancos, Sodom G, Catalonia and Habana will battle for the 2 spots in Group C. And Prime OGs, Eternal XI, 50 for the Gang and St. Jude will battle in Group D. Very quickly, let's not take too much time here. We go straight to the Silver Cup teams. First up, Royal XI had an extremely disappointing season, just barely avoiding relegation after they had an incredible title race 2 seasons before, but now we'll be looking to have a better run in a maybe lesser competition, but looking for all the best anyway. Messi Eaters also as well relegated actually last season and had a disappointing Gold Cup run, but here's another opportunity for them to try to have a proper cup run and maybe even a shot at the trophy. Bloodsport and Next Up Gaming round up part 1 in the Silver Cup, and then in part 2 we have a few teams that have earned their spot here so far. Florence FC, Mumbai Man who won the Jazz ticket, Halo FC and Wika Don. Alright, let's not take too much time either. We'll be heading straight to the draw for the Silver Cup teams. As we see here, we'll just be using spots A and B in this, as we just have 2 groups. And what we will do here for the Silver Cup is as a team is picked, they will be assigned to Group A, B, and then back to Group A and B. Alright, first team up in Group A. Messi Eaters for a spot in the Silver Cup Group A. Oh, I gotta change that. There we go. So Messi Eaters for a spot in Group A. Next Up Gaming for a spot in Group B. Bloodsport for a spot in Group A, and that also confirms Royal XI for a spot in Group B. Okay, let's All right, there we go. And let's add the teams from Pot B, or from Pot 2 rather. The teams that will be joining the Pot 1 teams in Group A. The first team, Mumbai Men. Mumbai Men for a spot in Group A. Heading to Group B. Florence FC. Florence FC. Oh, that's meant to be here. Florence FC in Group B. And then to round off our groups, one of Halo United and V Cardon to join Group A and B. Alright, that confirms it. Halo United in Group A, V Cardon in Group B. And that rounds it off. So for the Silver Cup groups, Group A, Messi Eaters, Bloodsport, Mumbai Man, and Halo Football Club, or Halo United. And in Group B, Next Up Gaming, Royal XI, Florence FC, and V Cardon. And that is a wrap for the Season 5 Cup draw. Your group stage opponents are now locked in, so start planning, start prepping, and maybe even scouting. And we want to thank everyone for showing up and being a huge part of this community. This season is going to be wild, the World Cup is going to be even wilder, and that final shot of glory in FC25 will be legendary. So we wish all teams the best of luck, and we'll see you on the pitch.